the Isle of Man boasts a rich history of culture and art. Stemming from its Celtic and Gaelic heritage, music has always been cherished on the island. From traditional Manx folk songs to the West Gallery music of the 19th century. And for the last 50 years, the island has found musical pride in the Manx National Youth Band. Founded in 1970 by Jim Crosbie, the band has developed a reputation for excellence. Current musical director Ian Clague has been involved with the band since its early beginnings.
I joined in the January of 1971, which is about 6 months after the band had been formed. I played with them and played with Jim until I went to university. And when I graduated, I was fortunate to get a position on the island and still carried on playing with the band and also helping to teach with Jim, mainly on a Saturday morning with the learner group at Murray's Road School. In 1981, Jimmy unfortunately took seriously ill and passed away in the September. I stood in for him as the conductor, and I've been conducting the band ever since.
From civic occasions to performing for the royal family, the band has been a great success on the island. Alongside this, they've also undertaken successful tours abroad.
Back in the middle 70s and early 80s, there wasn't the money around on the Isle of Man as there is now for people to have, sort of longish holidays and on the continent, and we would raise funds, and we've done some serious tours to Norway, to Holland, to Switzerland, and of course the big tour that the band had was to the North Island in New Zealand.
Sadly, Ian was unable to attend the tour to New Zealand. Thus, the role of conductor fell to the band's musical advisor, Derek Broadbent, a long-time collaborator and friend of the band, since first becoming involved in 1984.
We played a different venue sort of every 2 days, so we were touring only around the North Island. We would travel to one particular place and find our accommodation, and probably then have a rehearsal with the local band, because we always played part of our evening concert was always a finale with the two bands mass. They would play part, we would play part, and then we'd play another part together. So we always had to rehearse for that. That was an incredible place to take a lot of youngsters, out the other side of the world for 17 days, I'm sure they survived better than I did.
From tours to instruments, fundraising has played a major role in the creation and continuation of the band over the years. One of the most important patrons of the band in this regard has been former Lieutenant Governor of the Isle of Man, Sir Lawrence New.
It struck us from the very start as being the most wonderful thing to be involved in. All under 18, a lot of them never having played an instrument before, having their free tuition. We got very involved with them as people, and as we got to know them, they grew in skill and in personality. And it was a sad moment when, at the end of our 5 years, we left. We stayed away for 5 years to make room for our successor. And when we came back, several things had happened. One of them was that they'd all grown up another 5 years. But the most important, I think, was that those who had reached the age of 18 suddenly weren't really supposed to be in the band any longer, and so they had formed Manx Concert Brass.
25 years after the formation of the Manx National Youth Band, Manx Concert Brass was formed.
In 1995, we formed Manx Concert Brass, not as a grown-up youth band, something completely different, but also it did allow a real core of players who had grown up through the system, through the youth band, to stay together and continue to make music together, which most of them have done and still continue to do so.
Since its creation, Manx Concert Brass has been a great success in UK competitions. And for the last 3 years, the band has competed among the highest level of brass bands in the UK.
It's a wonderful story. The downside was that they were nomadic. They didn't have a home. They kept their heavy instruments and their music in the back of a van, and both deteriorated very quickly. And so when we came back after our 5 years of voluntary absence, they asked me if I would become not their patron, but their working president. And one of the things that we really wanted to get our teeth into was fundraising for this building. it took some time and a lot of money.
With the purchase of a former Red Cross building finalised in 2011, the band's new headquarters was promptly and appropriately named the Jim Crosbie Memorial Band Room, in tribute to the man who had started it all. Both bands are continuing to work hard, grow and develop, whilst maintaining a strong connection to the heritage of brass bands and what makes them so special.
The traditional brass band was formed out of mainly a working class culture which allowed, 150 years ago, people who couldn't even read or write to actually learn how to play an instrument. A lot of people have had the opportunity to move on and learn a musical education as well. So I think the thing about brass bands are that you can develop and get your music making to as high a standard and as an ensemble standard as you want to. The standard brass band instrumentation developed over the years to enable people to move around, if they weren't suited to one particular type of instrument. But then, of course, being human beings, we got into this competitive element, and that spurred on the actual development of playing the brass instruments and within the context of the band to a high standard. I think that's what makes a brass band unique.
For 50 years, the youth band has been a source of musical education for the younger generations on the island. And under Ian's guidance, alongside the support of the Manx community, they are continuing to flourish.
We couldn't have managed without the support of the community and just the general best wishes for us to keep going and to help young people further their musical education and be part of something that's worthwhile. Take us up to the semi-breathing bar 4, yeah? Okay. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and play. There are bigger demands on young people, there's no doubt about that. To find the time and effort to put into attending band practices and also trying to further your own individual expression with the instruments are not quite as straightforward as they were when I was younger. But having said that, as I say, we carry on with those core values, commitment, dedication, and changing to meet what people would like to listen to as well and what people want to play. I think the band can only go from strength to strength. Last 4 bars, right? What's your dynamics? Last 4 bars. What's the dynamics? 4 bars from the end. Oh, sorry, 3 bars from the end.
Sadly, the band's anniversary celebrations were interrupted in 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. However, despite the lockdown restrictions, they were able to keep spirits high in a very fitting manner. The influence of the band on the island via their youth programme and the competitive success of Concert Brass is undeniable. With their help, alongside the other bands on the island, brass has become a staple of Manx music culture.
The 7 bands, I think, are universally good, very good indeed. I think the impact on the island is very considerable, and although when you think of the Welsh, you think of people singing, I think when you think of the Manx, you should think of people playing brass.